Welcome back to the Aztec Campaign series, today with Mission 2. We'll have lots to discuss, and we'll also have to discuss one of the greatest deceptions in historical storytelling, which made me believe a fabricated version of Aztec history for a very long time. But don't be alarmed, I will clarify everything, and our starting point is the second mission featuring the Aztec Triple Alliance.
Passed down to you by Cuauhtémoc, jaguar warrior of Tenochtitlan. The gods were still uneasy, for another omen appeared that same year. The temple of the demon Huitzilopochtli burst suddenly into flame, although it was made of stone. When the people hurried to pour water on the fire, it burned with even greater violence. I asked our Emperor Montezuma what we needed to do to appease the gods. His haughty priests made that predictable reply. The Aztec Empire needed more prisoners. The sun god, the rain god, and even the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl were angry deities that required sacrifice. Our city-state of Tenochtitlan is allied with two others, together composing the Triple Alliance. Montezuma intended for the Triple Alliance to attack our longtime enemies, the Tlaxcala. I sent the traditional shield, arrows, and cloaks to the Tlaxcala, declaring to them that they would soon be attacked. Then, we marched out into the forests, our jaguar and eagle banners ready to clash with the heron banners of the Tlaxcala. Birds in the rainforest canopy took to the sky, eager to be away from the violence that was to come.
This Aztec Triple Alliance was a union between the city-states of Tenochtitlan, ruled by the campaign's namesake Moctezuma II, as well as Texcoco and Tlacopan. The alliance was formed by one of Moctezuma's predecessors in 1428. And the reason for this alliance was the strong expansion of the Tepanec in the region, which also became a threat to Tenochtitlan. Within this alliance, Tenochtitlan clearly held the dominant position. This becomes apparent in many things. One of them is how the tributes have been divided between these three city-states in the alliance, because many other tribes, many other cities had to pay tribute to the alliance so that they would not conquer them, and Tenochtitlan received more than the other two allies combined from these tributes. So they were powerful indeed. Cuauhtémoc, our narrator, reports that Moctezuma starts a war against Tlaxcala to find sacrifices to appease the gods. Human sacrifices were a real practice of the Aztecs, who believed this would calm their bloodthirsty gods, as I explained in great detail in the Aztec civilization episode. One way to obtain sacrificial victims was through the so-called garland wars or flower wars. The Tlaxcala were indeed arch-enemies of the Aztecs, with whom they frequently fought these wars. Although the campaign mission doesn't explicitly state this, I assume that this may have been the inspiration for this mission. So we begin our mission with the task of delivering a call to arms to our allies from the Triple Alliance. One of our allies are the Texcoco, represented by the Maya in the game, and the others are the Tlacopan, who, like us, are Aztecs. I cannot explain why the Texcoco are Maya, as they have no connection to the region, and Texcoco have settled at the Texcoco Lake, in which the artificial island of Tenochtitlan has been built, so they should be more Aztec than anyone else. The mission starts with us taking control of a few eagle warriors who serve as our ambassadors. We must travel to our allies to deliver our call to arms. We know a few things about our allies. For example, the Tlacopan have strong infantry units, whereas the Texcoco have many archers and mangonels to their disposal. Together, as the Triple Alliance, we should be able to confront and defeat the Tlaxcala. In the game, our enemies, the Tlaxcala, are also Aztec people living north of the river that stretches across the map. They are supposed to have strong archers, infantry units, and something the game calls mad shamans, which are their monks, and they are just regular Aztec monks, but I do like how this reflects the Tenochtitlan perspective on their arch-enemy. With our 4 eagle warriors, we initially head west to Tlacopan. They have a great settlement, it's actually quite beautiful, with a town center between 2 rivers, plenty of gold and berries at their disposal, and their city is guarded by militia and a few eagle and jaguar warriors. Upon arriving at their settlement, we deliver Moctezuma's message, and I have to say, the Tlacopan are not exactly thrilled about having to submit to Moctezuma's demands.
Emperor Montezuma insists that you make war on the Tlaxcala.
Montezuma oversteps his authority, but we will comply.
Anyway, we've gained 1 ally for the attack on the Tlaxcala, and now there's no direct path from one ally to the other, as the hostile Tlaxcala have built an outpost between them, fortified with stone walls and towers. So we take a little bit of a detour along the river and reach Texcoco this way, who settles south of Lake Texcoco.
Montezuma of the Aztec demands that as a member of the Triple Alliance, you attack the wicked Tlaxcala.
Montezuma asks us to do much for the Aztecs, but we shall do his bidding, for now.
This sounds ominous and a bit cheeky, threatening a Moctezuma eagle warrior like that. But alright, I guess. Also, I'm quickly distracted because Moctezuma sends us reinforcements from the capital Tenochtitlan.
Now we can attack the Tlaxcala. Villagers are being sent by transport from Tenochtitlan to establish our forward base.
He sent us 4 villages and enough resources to build a settlement. Honestly, the resources are abundant. Even on the hard difficulty, there were enough resources to not only build a town center, but also a market and a blacksmith as well, to immediately advance to the Castle Age. I didn't mention it before, but we started in the Feudal Age, which is probably the right call because Dark Age, going from Dark Age to Feudal Age at this point would have just been very bothersome. And as I progressed to the Castle Age with my only 7 villagers, I explored the jungle around my settlement and found some gold and some stone, even near Lake Texcoco. However, there's only wood around me and maybe a few berry bushes here and there, so I chose Lake Texcoco with its abundant fish as a food source. This also allowed me to keep an eye on Texcoco in case they would turn against me. The starting resources were even enough for 4 additional town centers, and I immediately built 3 after reaching the Castle Age. With my remaining gold, I bought food and started a boom reminiscent of the Art of War mission. My fish boom also would have made Viper proud, so I quickly sacrificed all my villagers on farms to the gods, following the Aztec tradition to increase my population limit. To my surprise, my fish boom was a little bit contested because the Tlaxcala sent over some galleys, which I had to get rid of by building a few of my fire ships. Luckily, there was really only one point of attack, and once I had my fire ships over there, there was really nothing the Tlaxcala could do to harass my fish eco. The 100 maximum population limit is actually quite painful in this mission, because you kind of need eco to get your stuff rolling, but also need military to defeat your enemy. So I decided, once my eco allowed it, I started building barracks and archery ranges near the castle of my ally from Texcoco. I thought that was a good idea because, well, they would guard my buildings against enemy attacks. And actually, it was a good idea because I built them just in time as I could repel a Tlaxcala attack with monks, crossbowmen, and eagle warriors. And this army of the Tlaxcala, they seemed, initially at least, very confident, but then were quickly destroyed by my military units being spammed out of my production buildings. So I figured this might be a good time to launch a counterattack, and I tried to get on to the peninsula with the enemy's strange fortification in the middle between my 2 allies.
We have found a hidden temple to Tlaloc, the rain god. The magicians say that if we bring 10 jaguar warriors to this location, we will be rewarded.
I need to bring 10 Jaguar warriors to this monastery, but first I had to destroy the gates and towers. On this peninsula, I built my first castle and a siege workshop as a launching point, producing Jaguar warriors and rams from there. However, the monastery was actually completely unguarded except for the towers, making the capture very easy.
These warriors shall receive the blessing of the rain god and will fight with the skill of 10 normal men.
This is very interesting. The interpretation of the game of my Jaguar warriors becoming 10 times stronger is actually by giving my 10 Jaguar warriors 465 health each instead of the usual 65. So they are now tanks. I don't know what the gods did to them, but these stats resemble a cheat code in my opinion. With them in my army, I don't think anything can stop me, and I therefore focus on the Tlaxcala. I head over with my leftover fire ships from defending my fish boom, and they help me protect my units, my rams, my Jaguar warriors and eagle warriors, crossing the river to go and find the Tlaxcala, finding first an Tlaxcala outpost, which I quickly destroyed and replaced with my second castle. There was also a monastery from which I plundered 4 relics and placed them in my conveniently placed monastery right next to the relics as well, so I gained a little bit of a resource trickle and could delete 2 more villages on gold. I quickly destroyed the Tlaxcala's 4 town centers, however, there was really no resistance whatsoever. They were completely helpless and got destroyed.
We have destroyed all of Tlaxcala's town centers. Now they will surely surrender.
Speaking of being helpless, my allies were no help at all. The Tlacopan and Texcoco didn't contribute anything to the fight. I think I saw a mangonel or an eagle warrior here and there, but I gotta say, huge disappointment. I think Moctezuma would not be happy if he knew, but turns out I'm the fool here. Apparently this was all intentional, as revealed next.
Now that we are rid of the Tlaxcala, let us rid ourselves of these Aztec taskmasters as well. Agreed.
So both our useless allies turn against us and have to be defeated next. At this point in time, I slightly regret building my production buildings near the Texcoco castle because they just get shot down by the castle. And also my fish boom is being destroyed by the Texcoco. But at this point, it actually doesn't really matter. I have an abundant amount of resources in the bank and no longer need an economy. 80 out of my 100 population are military units, and I might as well just delete the other 20 to get to my full 100 military. And with this military, I'll first overrun Tlacopan and next Texcoco, taking revenge for their betrayal and ultimately defeating them. There was literally nothing they could do against me, and that's despite me building my first castles, well, actually all my castle in areas that were smart for defeating my first enemy, but pretty useless in order to defeat my former allies. But even with that, even with my misplaced castles, they were just not able to really be resistant against my 100 military units. So ultimately they've been defeated, and actually I won't miss them. They were useless when they were my allies, and they were pretty much useless when they were fighting against me. Good riddance, I guess. Victory is ours, but a surprise arrives from the north. Spanish ships land on our continent, and a few riders emerge, including a man named Hernan Cortez.
None shall challenge the will of Montezuma and the Aztec Empire. But wait, what is this that approaches?
I claim these lands and all of the gold they bear in the name of Charles of Spain. Until all of the gold is brought to me, I shall not return home. To prove it, I am sinking my ships.
Who is this man who has arrived? Could it be that the god Quetzalcoatl has returned?
There he is, the man who will destroy the Aztec Empire. He did arrive in a caravel, although he is Spanish and not Portuguese. But it's true that he actually did arrive in a caravel because he hired caravels to cross the ocean from Cuba, where he came from, which is something I will tell you about in a minute. He had previously landed with his ships in a different part of Mesoamerica, subjugating a Maya city after they initially prevented his landing. However, he sailed on, and in April 1519 he landed at San Juan de Ulua in present-day Veracruz. This day marked the beginning of the conquest of Mexico. Hernan Cortez, whose full name is Hernan Cortez de Monroy y Oizarro Altamirano, I think? I hope this pronunciation was halfway accurate. He was born in 1485 and was a Spanish conquistador. Conquest seems to run in the family because he was a distant relative to Francisco Pizarro, another Spanish conquistador who conquered Peru, then ruled by the Inca in 1533. But back to Cortez. Although he came from the lower nobility, he wasn't necessarily wealthy. In 1504, he traveled to the West Indies to work for a relative who was the governor of Hispaniola, which is present-day Haiti and the Dominican Republic. 7 years later, he became the secretary of the governor of Cuba and was promoted to do his diligent work. During this time, he amassed a large fortune. But there was one thing missing to become a truly important man in society, which he so desperately wanted to be. And that, my friends, is a conquest. Fortunately, the governor of Cuba had heard of the riches in the unknown Mesoamerica and wanted to enrich himself with said gold. This was the perfect moment for Cortez. He immediately bought ships and hired 670 men, setting sail from Havana on February the 18th, 1519. And you might be wondering, what? Didn't Cortez mention something about Charles of Spain? Not a Cuban governor? Well, you're right. And that's because Cortez was tired of being under the governor's influence, with whom he also had a falling out just before he left the island. And the governor didn't actually want him to leave anymore. At first he gave him the order to do that, or the allowance, but he retracted that. However, Cortez was set to sail anyway and misregarded what his governor wanted. And that's a very bad situation to be in, especially with Cortez, and he was all in. He sailed to Mesoamerica and he founded an independent colony under royal authority, as the Spanish so often did. This colony was called Veracruz. He sent a justification letter to the Spanish king, who apparently knew nothing about it, along with numerous gifts the Aztecs had given to him once they, sent their first ambassadors. This actually happened because Moctezuma, upon learning of Cortez's arrival, did send a delegation with gifts of gold, jewels, clothing, and feathered ornaments.
The first messengers to arrive in Tenochtitlan told of mountains or towers that floated on the sea. Each story told to Montezuma was more fantastic than the last. They could fire stone balls, shooting sparks and raining fire that could crack open weapons. Huge deer with no antlers carried these gods on their backs. Their swords were iron, their bows were iron, their shields were iron, and their clothes were iron. Surely this was the return of Quetzalcoatl. Montezuma heard these reports with growing alarm as he shifted nervously on the Icpali, his legless throne. He ordered expensive gifts to be sent to the new arrivals, in the hopes that Quetzalcoatl would spare Montezuma when the feathered serpent came to Tenochtitlan. "He has come back," Montezuma whispered to me. "He seeks his place on the throne, for that is what he promised when he departed." I held my weapons tightly but said nothing. How could I challenge the word of our emperor? So says Cuauhtemoc, jaguar warrior of Tenochtitlan.
And as mentioned at the end of the mission, the eagle warrior, Cuauhtemoc, our narrator, he believed Cortez was the returning Quetzalcoatl, the Aztec god who, according to myth, once sailed across the sea and left his empire to the Aztecs, promising to return one day to reclaim it. Unfortunately, this just is not the truth. Cortez just made this story up and sold the story to the Spanish king that the Aztecs gifted him the land, and some sources even mention the myth that he was mistaken for Quetzalcoatl, which is here referenced by Cuauhtémoc. And I mean, give this man some credit, he wanted to conquer the land, and his governor didn't allow him, and actually he never allowed him to do that. He had one mission in the first place, and that was to explore the land, so then the Spanish could exploit the land for its goals, but he was supposed to explore and report back, and even that he was not to do anymore because the governor took back his order, so Cortez wasn't supposed to leave at all. So now he's in a bit of a predicament, and this is the way he tried to lie his way out of this situation. And all just because he so desperately wanted to be a conqueror. So he used this opportunity and violently took what he wanted. The campaign tells a fictionalized story of the conquest of the Aztec Empire, portraying the Aztecs as much simpler and more naive than they actually were. Instead, the campaign tells the story from the point of view of Cortez, of the lies he fabricated to get justification for his actions. It's all distorted lies. Well, not all, because there's one true fact in the story the campaign is telling, because it is true that Cortez sank his ships after disembarking anchors and compasses and other movable parts of the ships, at least according to Cortez's letters, which might not be the best source, but then again, they are mostly the only source we have about what has happened during this time, because most of the Aztec point of view on this matter has been destroyed by the Spanish conquest. So naturally, we have very little sources, and those sources are one-sided from the Spanish. But luckily, historians have reconstructed the history as best as they could, and today we know that actually this story is nothing else but a man who deliberately deprived himself and his men of the opportunity to return, as he was leading an operation that was not exactly right. He disobeyed the orders of the governor of Cuba and indebted himself for the enterprise after buying all those ships and hiring 760 men. And if he had failed his mission, and he would have been convicted as a traitor and probably be hanged or shot. So yeah, I guess he had no other choice but to double down. So when you look at the story, when we will tell the story of the Aztecs in this campaign, just be aware that in reality, this is nothing else but the story of a very ambitious con artist who put himself and hundreds of men in mortal danger. He lied to a Spanish king who would later become Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, one of the most powerful men in the world. And let's not forget that, and this is probably the worst thing about this, he's also responsible for me learning a completely false image of the Aztecs from this campaign during my school days. Well, good thing, at least I can correct that now, more than 25 years later, for you.